Chapter 1. Amazement. Before and after? It is so amazing to witness everything that has happened to me. It is something beyond miraculous. All the things people usually spend a lifetime trying to find, to feel, to live, from the smallest, simplest details to the greatest things, all of them have come to me without me even trying to find them or looking for them. Could it be that this saying I have heard so many times during the past few years, that of "it is all inside of you," is true? Could it be that one doesn't actually have to go anywhere to find all the joy, the blessings, the miracles in life? It has to be true because, honestly, I have not done anything to try to find anything. It all has shown to me, it all has appeared as if by magic. Now that I have spent over 2 years going through this, I find it to be the most normal thing in the world. Somehow I kind of expect it. And this is a miracle all in itself because I had spent the first 42 years of my life being the most fatalistic, fearful, low-deserving, low self-esteem person you could ever meet. Now, after having been very used to this magic for the past 2 years and realizing that now all this magic is the most natural thing in the world to me, now, when I spend more than a few seconds thinking about it, when I start to realize about the magnitude and depth of all of this, and start to think about how difficult or rare it is that these things actually happen, and then the longer I think about it in that way, the more I start to wonder, why are these things happening to me so easily? And who am I to deserve all of this? And then I quickly feel that if I continue letting my thoughts go in that direction, I easily end up in the same low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, etc. All of that negativity that used to be the main trait of my personality before. And yes, it has been a very gradual process. And I see that before I used to easily end up in that low deserving trap. Oh, but now I gradually have been able to catch myself faster and have been able to pull myself out of it sooner, to the point that now it is very uncomfortable to feel that type of negativity in me, even for a few seconds. Now it is much easier and much more natural for me to expect all kinds of blessings to happen inside of me and around me all the time. I guess the fact that I had lived my life in lack of self-appreciation, self-love, and self-worth, I have not thought I actually deserved much. Instead, I have just stumbled through life, realizing about the things I did not like, and moving on from there to something else. Realizing how much I did not want that either, and then moving on to something else and to something else. So I became an expert at the things I did not like or did not want to experience. I became an expert at not wanting anything, at thinking that I did not deserve anything, at thinking that I needed to train myself to not want anything, so then I would not feel disappointed about anything. And then Little but surely, I became numb. My mind became numb. My feelings became numb. My body became almost paralyzed. My emotions became an obscure abyss in which I buried every thought, every idea, every dream. And the worst, I became so used to it. So much so that I got to the point of not even realizing that this was not normal at all, that it did not have to be that way. I got to the point of thinking at first, and being very convinced as the years went by, that there was nothing in this world for me, not understanding the meaning of anything, not finding sense or purpose in anything, especially in me. All the first 42 years of my life went like this. I realized that I did not like that, whatever that was, and moved on from there to something else. And every time what I was moving to was something less liked by me, and less wanted, and less appealing. And my life was somewhat of a slowly but surely down the hill ride, year after year, day after day, minute after minute. Everything. My studies, my career, my relationships, my self-worth, my body weight, my body image, my blood pressure, my personality, my emotions, etc., etc. Everything in my life went down the same path. And I could not understand, and no one, at least somewhat close to me, could understand why. Why someone like me? Why someone with such loving family, loving friends, loving teachers, beautiful life? Why someone so smart, so intelligent, and yes, even so pretty? Why me, having everything in the world? Why other people who lived in real tough situations seemed to be so happy? And here I was, following this unstoppable down the hill journey. Why? Something very powerful happened to me one day in January of 2013. That something caused, or better yet, helped me to at least stop. No, it would be much more accurate to say somewhat slow down the down the hill motion of my life, the lack of direction of my life, the low self-esteem. At least it helped me to somehow realize that I could hit the brake pedal to slow down that kind of motion, to bring that negative motion to a lower speed, to at least be able to realize, to assess how delicate my situation was, to slow down and actually be able to look around with a little bit less blurriness, to slow down and at least be sometimes able to breathe in a meaningful way, to slow down and be able to realize how fast my thoughts were constantly going down that negative path, to slow down and start sometimes, even if for a matter of seconds, to just be. Yes, to just be. At that time, I suddenly realized how exhausted I was, how exhausted my body was, how exhausted my mind was, how exhausted my feelings were, how exhausted my soul and my spirit were, how much confusion there was in my being, how much lack of understanding there was in my being, how many contradictions had accumulated in my being throughout the first 42 years of my life. I somehow, do not even know how, reached somewhat of a plateau after that. A plateau that should not be called that because it was not peaceful or stable at all. It was a plateau just on the surface, but in the inside there was a combination of constant avalanches, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, hurricanes, and everything else imaginable along those lines. The intense, confusing, unbearable energies started within myself. The intense going within started to happen inside of me. The intense and unstoppable impulses to reflect and remember and reassess my life started to happen inside of me. The intense writings started to build up inside of me, to the point that I had to give up every time, stop everything I had to do, and just write, and write, and write. Intense feelings started to increase exponentially inside of me. Many feelings that I had never even experienced before or imagined that they existed. All of this made me feel and realized that my life, my whole life, had been a total contradiction up to that point, a total lack of direction up to that point, a total confusion up to that point, full of things that I had wanted at some point and then gave up on them because of my lack of direction, my lack of knowing how worthy I am, my lack of love. I am delighted at the way I have been feeling after that, and I am even more delighted to realize that this beautiful state of being has lasted pretty steadily all this time. I have experienced a slowly but surely up the hill motion in my life now. This is so calming, so relieving, so much so that I want it to last forever and ever. I can tell you, there hasn't been a time in my life where I have felt like this. It is a feeling so beautiful and so strange at the same time. A feeling that something inside of me is moving up, 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 and bubbling like a hot spring. But sometimes, many times, instead of that something moving up and up, slowly bubbling from inside of me, it shoots out like a geyser. It would probably be more accurate to describe it as a bubbling geyser. Yes, that is actually perfect for how I have felt these past couple of years of my life. But, wait a minute. What is that something that moves like a bubbling geyser from inside of me? What is it? At first, I felt it was like a foreign object, something that was placed inside of me all of a sudden and was finding its way out. But as the days, the months, even the years went by, as I embraced this process more and more, as I embraced it like my last resort, as I was able to sense, to truly feel what was happening inside of me, in all that process, I realized that it was not a foreign object, that nothing was placed inside of me, that it all had been there all along. It was parts of me that were emerging like a bubbling geyser. It was me. It was my being, my true self. What a lovely, delightful, what a magical experience. One day, reading some of the writings that I had started, so many of them, to see which one I wanted to continue, I suddenly realized that the first 42 years of my life, I have had it all backwards. Yes, I innately did not like conflict, and I always had the tendency to just let things happen. And when something displeasing happened to me, or when some wrongdoing was done to me, I basically let it all be without fighting back or anything. And yes, I now realize that it was probably the best thing to do, because going against things just basically adds more fuel to the fire per se. But I never realized that this was happening because something inside of me was causing it. So instead of being able to remediate the situation and do something so it would not happen again, event after event, action after action, I just took more and more on a path of less and less self-worthiness, as if for some reason I deserved all of these negative things happening to me. And moment after moment, year after year, more and more lack of self-esteem, more and more lack of self-love, going down this hill that became steeper and steeper every time, in every area of my life. And the hill got steeper because the increase of those negative feelings toward myself grew deeper and deeper as the years and the experiences passed by.